Hello, dear hearts. Thank you so much for connecting and wanting to learn about solstice. Solstice in June and what that means for the world, what that means for us uniquely. As the year is divided into 4 key points which are placed with the solstices and the equinoxes, if you look at it directly, it creates a directional cross, north, south, east, west. Now, what centralizes all of this is our own intentions and how we wish to navigate through the dimension that we are in. Of course, in life, it's not always easy to see because we ourselves are taken by all the different influences that can come at us, that can be there through our own thoughts, through whatever it is that pulls us. And even though we have a yearning to have more of a mind over matter approach, it is very easy when we simplify things, and understanding the solstices can create this simple, more raw authenticity in what we know as the cyclical form of the realm we are in. And solstice in June has, such a celestial, such a out of this world, otherworldly, dimensional, elated state, because we're looking at, in the northern hemisphere, we're looking at a solar point that is elated, that is at that extreme of light and heat, and fire itself in its dignity dominates. Now, understanding solstices as being the extremes of light and dark, the play of light and dark, and the equinoxes bringing us to a state of equipoise, divine harmony, and the polarities finding a sincere and serene balance. Solstice has always been, as has the equinoxes, of the utmost importance, and it is a deliberator, especially for the ancients, of the portals of time. And what I find remarkably inspirational is the law and order, the divine law and order that steps into play when we are understanding the solstices. And if you want to know just how much importance has been placed on these, I can tell you now that the way, for example, our pole star, Polaris, how that functions, and the story of, how this shifts every 26,000 years or so, and then we have, a new point of reference in terms of our directional star, a pole star. But the point here is we relate to that as if, it's something hypothetical, right? In reality, there are stars that are actually visible to our eyes all the time, that are above the horizon. And we can say they're fixed stars. They have various terms. But directionally speaking, the pole star, the North Star, that point of reference, right, is really like a compass. And it isn't something that is drifting, into further oblivion. It is a point internally as it is externally. It is actually a clarity point, and it is a thankful positioning for our own quest, because the earth relies on that directionally on an external level, and on an internal level we obviously need a center point when we want to create a state of awareness that is useful. We like to fix on something central, right? Navigational and central, that is directional, that we feel is that arrow on the compass. So solstices have their judges, their divine judges. And in the ancient times, and we can also say that currently, because nothing on this level has changed, there are two key stars in one of the 88 constellations that are dearly affiliated with the solstices. And divine, we would say divine, the relationship to man. And it's so beautiful and so magical to get to know, to understand. But I'm not going to go into those stars right now and explain how valuable they are and their relationship to solstice, because I feel like I have to do the honor and lay the ground telling you why solstice is something that the ancients would prostrate to, especially the June solstice, in such an elated way, with so much fire and celebration in the burning of brilliant wood, and everyone's joyful and cheerful, enthusiastic intention and wishes for so many fruitful and abundant results that indeed stem from something very fertile, very sensual, very light, excited and bright, which is no other than the sacred feminine, the great mother goddess, in her Venusian form, in her shape that is very much linked to the great mother in the form of Isis, Aphrodite, Venus in Latin. She goes by many names, and so many different cultures, when they would really put into play the June solstice as a festival, as a means of celebration, would put into play, just how important the sacred feminine, the great mother goddess, is, because of her incredible offering, and how there is no creation without that point which is beyond what we can understand intellectually, but it really is with us all the time. It is what we are experiencing, seeing, going through. It's everything that is contained within this experience that we're in. And it's always moving, it's in movement, always active, and has so many moods, faces, expressions, just like the cycles itself, you can say, are the sacred feminine, the great mother goddess, in all her forms, in all her moods. So let's say now, June solstice is on the opposite end to the December solstice, right, in the northern hemisphere. And you can understand that, December solstices, being on the other extreme in the northern hemisphere, talk about that dark point. And what they do is they unite man to the material plane and bring us to a material state, right, that you can actually understand the functionality of being alive and experience that, where divine presence, it goes down through you, gets into the ground, rises back up through your being. June solstice is on the contrary, in terms of the northern hemisphere, of a force. You're actually rising into divine presence. You're rising into that presence as it circulates back down into your earth, and again you're rising into that presence because you are going into the highest peak of your capacity through the force of light, coming from the expression of fire being also the soul, as we say, alma, right? And in your own languages, please, you can say, or you can state, you can tell me what you call soul. But I guess being is another way to put it, right? So that is sincerely, connecting with light, with truth, with fire, and that fire being soul, being presence, being life, being, I guess, what isn't just there visible, as you can see the air, as you can see the earth, as you can see the water. Fire, we created. Do you understand? Of course, solar energy is offering it to us all the time, and there is fire in so much, but it isn't visible. It isn't visible to the naked eye unless you're looking up at the heavens. And there are some very, very sophisticated miracle places, power places on this earth where fire miraculously arises. All the volcanic energy, for example, which is also an embodiment of some kind of a display of fire. But generally, it's not as visible, as present, as happening as your air, your earth, your water on a day-in to day-out basis. But we mustn't omit the heavenly component, which is what we get from the fire, which is in our galaxy, in our solar energy, in so many stars, and of course in our body. Fire does so much in our body as well. But yes, fire being created, fire being an element that is very much determining spirit, soul, the pulse of life. Just like when you look at a candle, imagining that is a lifespan. When the candle comes to its final point, and then the wick, you can see the flame slowly burns out itself. It's exactly that, if you want to look at it from a metaphoric and a visual understanding of just that flame of life, the flame of being here. Actually, the candle is a great example because there's a temporary component, there's a bright light, there's the structure, and it is not stagnant. When you see a flame, it's not stagnant. It can never be stagnant, and it's always unique. It's not going to be the same flame as another flame. So it's a perfect example of experience of consciousness into form through, I guess, the power of creation and it being materialized. So yeah, the June solstice, northern hemisphere energy of the June solstice is definitely that we're unifying with that fire within and throughout at its highest peak, rising into that, ascending into that. The motion is circular, but there is an upward movement. We are allowing for the energy to rise and move through us. And on the contrary, in the December solstice, you're returning to matter, right? And going to that deepest point, the darkest point in matter, wherein things can be materialized. And it's also a portal. Solstice is a gateway, either or. The June solstice, the northern hemisphere, I guess, can be experienced as many commencements, but just as extremes interlock, there are also many ends. The same thing takes place when we're in the December solstice season. So extremes interlocking, it's a portal. Some will experience the beginnings, some will experience the ends. The best thing about it is you are able to somehow connect with presences in within and throughout that are not limited to the ordinary and mundane. And as much as we have accepted the 3D state that we're in, just as many great thinkers, scholars, sages, and so many other divine beings, realized beings, awakened beings have said and have stated, there is, of course, a fourth dimension, there is a fifth dimension. I mean, dimensionally speaking, there's so much more than just this realm that we're in. And this process of ascension, of seeking out the truth, of wanting to find that complete authenticity within us has a lot to do also with coming out of the limitations that the 3D dimension provides us. Sometimes they can be helping us, aiding our path. Other times they can actually really restrict our path. So there's always that dual component in the realm we're in. But this quest, this wholehearted aspiration, it is so powerful when we are surrendering to the energies of the solstices, because we can actually feel, time no longer being how we perceive it, but having such a more infinite state that you can only obviously open up to it, right? The heart expansion is just a natural result. And because we are honoring so much the sacredness and all the feminine, how that dances through so much, and of course within us, what that means, what that sacred feminine means. And in this case, in the June solstice, well, in the Northern Hemisphere, we have so many Great Mother Goddess representations to, I guess, honor. And there are a few stories that I can go over to provide inspiration. I think we all love and appreciate the heat of fire, the solar energy. I think we all love and appreciate the fact that we're alive, and want to, at the very least, right? A lot of us, at the very least, want to appreciate that we are alive. So, starting with an understanding of the 20th of June, all the way until the 27th of June every year, based on our current calendar, there's a huge ceremonial component to various different forms of the Great Mother Goddess. In saying this, though, the Great Mother Goddess is celebrated every day. There are various forms of her that are honored and venerated every day. As you know, I've after so many years of deep research, study, and consideration, also working with my own past, and those who have come before me, I've managed to put together a very detailed divinatory system, working with all the different moods and faces and interpretations of the Great Mother Goddess. So the infinite moods of the Goddess divinatory system is what I call it. And if any of you are interested in that, I know a lot of you have already done it and love to do it from time to time. But in saying this, you can reach out, you can request that. It's such a great time to ask for it around the solstices, the equinoxes, of course. So yes, the 20th until the 27th, there really is a rising in June of that celebration of the fertile component of the Great Mother Goddess in the Northern Hemisphere. But regardless where we are in the hemispheres, actually, the theme I'm about to talk to you about is consistent, because it's not so much just to do with the climate. If we look at the story here, it's very much in reference to the extremes, how they interlock, the polarities, so to speak, and those forces, of the bright light, the depth of darkness, and again, how they interlock. So, as we commence the 20th of June, we prepare for the sun's entry into Cancer, okay? And there is a lot of respect to the mother of all things, the guardians of the temple in the sacred feminine form, the guardians of our community, the guardians of the village, the guardians of our homes in the sacred feminine form. Then that preparatory stage takes place. It leads then into what solstice is. And of course, solstice is very strongly the Great Mother Goddess. Now, if we think of places like Stonehenge which is linked to Druid belief systems. If we think of places like the circular ancient Greek dances that have been taking place for forever, and how, you know, they would happen around a fire, on holy landscapes, for example, under what we know being the modern day Acropolis, the Parthenon in Athens. Down below there was an area where these dances would be very frequent on such occasions, and many others, but on this one particularly, you can imagine the level of flame and fire that would rise and create so much, I guess, speech, visual speech. You know, just simply looking at it, you know, you would be mesmerized at what it would be communicating. Same thing also if we look at all the lands, the ancient civilizations, all of them had their solstice ceremony and festival. So, okay, we go into the honoring focus here of the Great Mother. Again, it's preparatory as we go towards solstice. And then, you know, on solstice itself, in June, you know, there's so much respect to the high priestesses, to the understanding of dance, the movement, how flame and fire moves through us, through the movement of dance, how we are embodying the sacredness of that element through what we offer through movement. The action component is fire, is flame. Flame through this offering of our movement. And the dances were very elaborate, a lot of them very up-tempo for the June solstice. And then there'd be sweet cakes, sweet wines, you know, all sorts of, you know, there were special, drinks made of certain honeys and resins, and of course wine that would come from the previous harvest of the vines, and these sweet cakes, you know, that were made in a very simplistic way, were also very prominent. And again, a lot of fire. And wheat, how wheat is appreciated too, was very important at that time, whether it be through bread or a certain kind of sweet bread, which was honey-based, which actually some villages still do this in certain parts of our earth. Okay, and then, yes, we celebrate the solstice. We create our positive intentions. We request union with divine. We connect with the divine. We let divine presence flow through our being, go into our being. We rise up to greet it, you know. Now, in this rising up to greet it, letting it flow through our being, and understanding there is so much more. There's an infinity to it all, right? That we are so uniquely a part of, you know, creating our own unique contribution to that grandness, source energy, divine presence, authenticity, the truth in all, right? Then in that sacred celebration of fire, which I completely encourage all of you to do, whether you light a candle at home, actually light a fire, you know, how you want to connect with this solstice sacred energy of fertile, sensual, vibrant, enthusiastic, excited energy is up to you. Then we talk about midsummer, right? Normally on the 23rd in our calendar year, June, going on to the 24th, which has also been adopted by many Christian and Catholic religions, and they venerate a specific saint and also do a very similar ritual connected to fire on those days. But pre-Christianity, it's important to know, you know, that this midsummer, again, was very much linked to the Great Mother Goddess, Aphrodite, Venus, as we would say in Latin, Ishtar, Babylonian, but there are many other names to honor her. And even Isis has a role here, even though, you know, she's very affiliated very singularly at other points of the year. She's also, I guess, invited and active at this time. But Aphrodite, in her heart chakra activation, brightness, fertile point of union, of sensuality, of beauty, of the aesthetic, of dance, of song, of very much, giving ourselves to the joys and the upliftments and the potential of life, and life as a force, as a presence, not just as something, I guess, that we kind of treat like isn't there, right? So you can imagine this midsummer, we then burn so much into the fires of change. And those midsummer fires, generally the fire itself is taken, the first flame, from very important power places and brought down to the villages. This is at least how the ancients would do it. Some places they still keep these traditions where they create the first flame in very sacred places, either in high mountains or very unique grottos, or in certain temples, places of supreme power and worship. And they would create that first flame and then bring it, whether it be through horse and carriage, on donkey. How they would get it to the village has evolved over time, but they would bring it to the villages, to the community, and then everyone would start to light their own personal flame through that main, source flame. And that would also then light massive fires, bonfires, and so on and so forth, for midsummer as well. So as you see, the power of fire continues here from the 20th onward. And what's specific about the 23rd and the 24th is how powerful the flame is, because you are getting rid of dispelling all negativity, cleansing, purifying yourself, and giving yourself to divinity. So you can see it's the opposite of descending, going into the form and matter state where you merge with matter and understand the material. It's on the opposite end where you are ascending. You are going into divine presence and having a connection and an experience of what is more than what you are accustomed to as a human being, right? So there will be a lot of divining, a lot of trance-like states, dances that invoke trance. There would be a lot of, just freeing oneself from, I guess, the self itself, freeing oneself from self, right? Or in simple words, freeing oneself. So the midsummer fires, very popular in Europe, all throughout Europe, but in many places in the Northern Hemisphere. The Southern also has their own version of it. And there's a similar theme regardless in the South. Okay? But knowing that flowers are also important in all of this. Imagine how many flowers you'd wear, you'd just have as ornament. Again, such a sweet and tender example of the Venusian theme in the form of maiden, Aphrodite in the form of maiden. So then we get to Midsummer Day, the 24th of June, which then is really, really bringing Isis to her throne. And again, Aphrodite and her worship continues, as does the worship for Astarte. Then we get even more interesting, where we bring in names such as the Mother's Festival, concepts in Scandinavia like the Midsummer Bride, and then we lead all this procession of invocation of so many sacred feminine forms, wherein then we are embracing the goddesses of summer in the northern hemisphere. And that's where June the 27th really does create a stamp on that. So all the different goddesses of summer, right, throughout time and space. So I think my most preferred instruction, or I guess point of reference for something so sacred, is to be very compassionate to oneself and to others, very patient to oneself and with others, and just letting what needs to purify before we get to that heat, that peak of heat within and throughout. And then as solstice peaks this year on the 20th of June, which is a bit earlier than usual, at around 10:50 p.m. in Paris, France time. That's 10:50 p.m. in Paris, France time. Of course, in Australia, the June solstice will be taking place on the 21st, but in pretty much everywhere else on Earth, it will be taking place on the 20th of June. So yeah, make sure you note that peak moment down, which is 10:50 p.m. on the 20th of June, Paris, France time for 2024. And I guess bringing in the heart energy. And this is why Venusian energy, Venus, Aphrodite, in that form, and Isis, of course, the loyalty, the devotional component, as we would say in Sanskrit, is bhakti, the love of devotion, the giving and the act of devoting oneself, and the love and the depth and the capacity in that. And of course, how clean it is, because it's always determined by that. The cleanliness of the act, of the depth, of the state. And Venusian energy cleans the heart, the Aphrodite within us cleans the heart. Venus as a star, visible or not, she cleans us, Her planetary gaze cleans us. But above all, we can do it. We can do it through just bringing in that cleansing heat and warmth. Venus is very warm, Aphrodite is very warm, and the heart is very warm. And have that tenderness, that love, that care for ourselves, for others, for all things, and have patience, activating patience so that we can have more space for what really matters. And of course, fire being so sacred, if we are lighting a candle, lighting a fire, connecting with fire, or simply just connecting with solar energy, whether we can see the sun or not, regardless of there being clouds or not, when the light is out, it's out. And solstice day and night light is very significant. So exposing yourself to that solstice light, being aware of it, being thankful and grateful for it, and how it functions in us as well as throughout all things and all matter. And above all, making that aspiration that we can be cleansed, that we can really rise into that authenticity. So thank you so much. Wishing you the most amazing solstice. Let me know how you celebrate, how you connect with your loved ones, what you do from the week of the 20th until the 27th. No matter what takes place, make sure you give a moment or two to these things. Thank you so much. Blessed solstice. Bye-bye.